As we gear up for Bellator this week, and we got a UFC card on Friday, we got a Bellator card on Saturday, and I gotta say, the Bellator card is pretty impressive. We're going to break down a couple of the fights today with one of my favorite interviews in the sport. He makes his return to action in November. Joe Lauzon, welcome back to the show. How is everything?
It's good. How you doing?
I'm good. You know, it's funny. Every time I talk to you, we break down stuff. We talk about fights. You always do these breakdowns online. I'm waiting for you to get in that analyst role. When are you going to get that TV spot, Joe? I'm waiting for it.
I'm too busy as is. I'm in the gym all the time. Like, I'm running my gym. I got a couple of gyms. Like, I am so busy. I would love to do more of that stuff. It's really, really tough.
Yeah, totally understand.
I'm putting all you guys out of work.
Well, let's talk about some of the fights going on this weekend. We're going to talk about a couple of the main fights here on the card, and I want to start off with the main event, of course. Benson Henderson, a guy, of course, you're familiar with, Joe, from his time in the UFC, making his return to action against Pitbull Ferreira, the other Pitbull, the lightweight Pitbull, who is coming back in action, had a big knockout over Josh Thompson. Great fight. Benson Henderson is the favorite right now. He's coming in at about minus 200 as opposed to Patricky Pitbull at plus 170 on mybookie.ag. So, Joe, what do you think? Is this a pretty safe bet on Benson Henderson, you think, or do you think Pitbull has a chance to pull out the upset?
Benson's really good. You know, he's had a little bit of a rough go in Bellator because, you know, going out of his weight class and everything else. But I think he's gonna do well. I think things are gonna go his way. You know, I got faith in smooth one, Benson Henderson.
Yeah. What I like about this fight for Benson is that, you know, Patricky tends to get very heavy-handed on his punches, gets to get a little bit more flat-footed, and when guys stand in front of him, it's very dangerous. But Benson moves so much. I think the only time I can remember him getting caught like that was when he fought Rafael dos Anjos, and obviously there's no shame in losing to that guy.
No, not at all. You know, Benson's good everywhere. You know, he was a UFC champ for good reason. You know, good wrestling, really good wrestling, great jiu-jitsu, great stand-up, great movement. You know, really, really tough to kind of pin down, and he's gonna make good use of angles. I think.
And he also, you know, he fought his brother, obviously. I mean, I know that you can't, you know, lump two people into the same conversation together, but the Pitbull brothers do tend to fight very similar to each other, let's be honest.
Yeah, no, for sure. You know, sometimes you get brothers like me and my brother are completely different. But then there's other sets of brothers that are, you know, very, very similar. I think about like Nick and Nate Diaz. You know, like they're almost clones of each other. You know, there's a lot of, you know, genetic family tendencies that occur a lot of times.
Yeah, absolutely. Another fight I want to talk about is the welterweight fight, probably my favorite fight of the entire weekend. I love this fight. Lorenz, Larkin, and Paul Daley. According to the odds makers over at mybookie.ag, they got Lorenz Larkin as a minus 250 favorite. Paul Daley coming back at plus 200. I don't know about you, Joe, but this is my favorite fight of the weekend, along with I'd probably say Claudia Gadelha and Jessica Andrade over in the UFC. I love this matchup, and Lorenz is a pretty heavy favorite, but in a striking matchup, man, I feel like this could be anybody's fight.
Yeah, I think Rory's going to do well. Not Rory. Paul Daley's going to do well. You know, I think he didn't look very good against Rory McDonald in the last fight, but it's just because Rory is so freaking good, and Rory just kind of, you know, picked him apart a little bit and did his thing. You know, but you can't mess with Syntax. You know, he hits freaking hard. He hits people.
Yeah, when you're facing, you know, Lorenz Larkin, I would say, is probably the more well-rounded guy in the fight, which obviously I understand why he's the favorite. But when you're dealing with a guy like Daley and you're talking about a fight that is more than likely going to stay on the feet, I mean, that's just like dynamite. You know what I mean? Like, there's always that chance that one punch slips through, that one knee, that one elbow, whatever it is. And Daley doesn't need more than one to put anybody away.
Yeah, no, he hits hard. You know, they call him Semtex for a reason. You know, he hits so hard. You know, and the other thing you got to think about too is the fact that because he's pretty heavy skill wise in the striking department and less so in the grappling, he's working on his wrestling all the time. You know, so you got to think that his wrestling's going to be really sharp. You know, fighting a guy that's well rounded like Lorenz Larkin.
Yeah, when you see a matchup between two strikers like this, and I think Lorenz Larkin, as I said, is the more well-rounded fighter. Do you have to be careful not to get too far away from yourself? And what I mean by that is I think Lorenz Larkin could probably win this fight if he just took Daley down and out-wrestled him. I think he's probably the better wrestler. We've seen him use his wrestling at times during his career, but then you get kind of caught in this mode where everyone is predicting this to be a crazy, you know, stand-up battle, a striking battle. That's what the fans expect. That's what you and I expect. I mean, that's a more dangerous fight, though. I mean, I think Lorenz could probably try to out-wrestle him and maybe win in a little easier fashion, but I don't know that he'll do that.
Yeah, there's a lot of times where guys, they don't want to fight the smarter, safer fight. They kind of want to test themselves a little bit. Like they think that, their stand-up is good enough, or, their jiu-jitsu is good enough, or their wrestling is good enough, or whatever it may be in that particular matchup. It can be dangerous, though. Like fighting a guy like Paul Daley, like the clear path to winning is to taking him down and avoiding the stand-up, But, sometimes guys, like, I can get him on the feet. And we'll see. I think we'll know generally, in the first minute or two, I think you generally know what the game plan is going to be. If Lorenz Larkin is going to try to keep it on the feet and try to, think he can bang it out, or if he's just, be looking for takedowns right off the bat.
Yeah. If you were a betting man, Joe, would you say that, Daley is the underdog, is a solid pick? Because I in my head, I think, I say Lorenz Larkin probably wins, but, if I'm trying to make some money on the fight, Daley's not a bad pick for the underdog.
No, I think Daley's a good pick. I think he's a good pick. I think the number's right. I think it's definitely worth, that's definitely a good number for him.
Yeah. And you go with Benson Henderson in the other one. That's your pick in the main event.
Yep. That's my other pick. The other fight of the night that I think is a really, really good pick is Adam Piccolotti. Adam came out and trained with us a couple weeks ago, and he's so freaking good. He's really, really good. I think he's 9-0, fighting a guy it's like 21-3 or something like that. But Adam's a beast. I think he's a dog too. So. I think he's an amazing pick as well.
Yeah, that's another one. The odds are really, really close now. And actually, right now they have Adam as a -165 favorite, a very slight favorite over Godi Yamauchi at +140. I was actually kind of surprised because I think Piccolotti is a very good prospect. Yeah, you said he's 9-0. I think he's like 5-0 in Bellator. He's got lots of experience and he's faced good guys. I actually would expect him to be a heavier favorite in that fight.
Yeah, I think he's going to do really, really well. He's got great wrestling, awesome jiu-jitsu, good striking. He's awesome. He's really good.
Yeah, and you got to work with him a little bit up at your camp.
Yeah. So he flew out here. He was out here for about a week. Did awesome. Beat up a whole bunch of guys in my gym. Did really good work. Everything was awesome. I was still that motor.
Yeah, and obviously he's he's around your division, so of course that's got to help as you get your fight ready. Coming up here in about 2 months now.
Yeah. November 11th. Yeah. I'm fighting Clay Guida. And Adam was perfect. I'm going to try to get him. I'm hoping he gets out of this fight unscathed. Hopefully get him back out here in a couple weeks, help me get ready for my fight.
Yeah. We're going to talk again, of course, before November, Joe, but how excited are you for that fight coming up in November? You and Clay Guida, that seems like almost like a Legends fight. It's like one of those fights that you felt like it should have probably happened. It probably could have happened, within the last, 5 or 6 years. We should have seen it. Now we finally get to see it. This is a fun fight.
Yep. It definitely could have happened, much, much sooner. It just has to be the perfect storm. It has to be me healthy, me ready to go, him healthy, him ready to go. Both coming off a win, both coming off a loss. There's a lot of little factors that kind of go into it. But eventually, I'm gonna meet them all. I'm gonna get to fight everyone. So, excited.
You are the bonus baby, and I look at this card, and I was kind of joking. I talked to Matt Brown about this. I said this card is insanely stacked for a fight night card. There's so many good fights in this card, from Anthony Pettis and Dustin Poirier to yourself to Matt Brown, Diego Sanchez, and on down the road. Is it fun to have a fight where you get a bonus on a card like this, where it's like, there's so many, you feel like there's going to be so many potential options, but when you pull off a bonus on a card like this, it almost feels more special because there's so much competition.
Oh yeah, it's awesome playing on a card like that because sometimes there's guys that are almost like sleepers that you don't know. Someone could be a badass or really tough, or have great submission ability or knockout ability or whatever, but training for this fight, that everyone on the card is phenomenal. That everyone has it in them to, go out and get that bonus. So just, it's a little bit of extra oomph, a little extra push for training camp just to, kind of go out there and just, train hard and train well.
Yeah, I love it. Well, Joe, we'll talk again before November, buddy. I appreciate taking time to break down some fights with me today, and we will catch up soon.
All right, sounds good. Thank you.
All right, man. Talk to you soon.
All right.
Later. Bye. As we continue our preview of Bellator 183 coming up this weekend, like I said, make sure you check out the odds over at mybookie.ag. If you use the code KOREPS, you get 100% reimbursement on all your deposits. And now we're going to welcome in to break down the second half of the card with UFC lightweight James Vick. James, what's going on, man? How's everything in Texas?
It's good, man. I'm actually up in Maryland, though, right now, training up here at the camp I'm come to. But Texas is good always. Maryland's good. Everywhere I go is good.
Oh, nice. Maryland. Okay. Very cool. Very cool. So we're going to talk about a couple of fights going on at Bellator this week, and I want to kick things off talking about the heavyweight fight. Former UFC fighter Roy Nelson making his return to action and Bellator debut this week, and right now he's a minus 220 favorite over Javi Ayala. He's the guy who knocked out Sergey Karatanov with a very impressive knockout in his last fight. James, what do you think about this fight, and are you excited to see Roy Nelson make his Bellator debut?
Yes, sir, I am. I've always been a fan of Roy Nelson. I question his work ethic a little bit in some fights past and his conditioning coming into fights, but he always comes in and puts on a show. He looks for finishes, and he has a lot of finishes over high level competition. So I'm very excited about it.
Yeah, I know we've seen some guys from the UFC go to Bellator, and they've struggled a little bit in their first fights. We saw it with Benson Henderson. We saw it a little bit with Lorenz Larkin, going into his title fight. I mean, does that play any factor in your mind in this matchup, or do you think Roy's got that enough veteran experience that he won't allow that to play into his head?
No, I think that age more than anything is going to play a factor for Roy Nelson. I mean, he's obviously an older guy, and I mean his opponent that he's fighting has 5 losses. His record is 10-5, and he's lost 5 losses to just regional level competition. So it's not like Roy Nelson hadn't fought like quite a bit better competition than he's fought. So I don't think that's a factor. I think that Roy Nelson's experience level is going to be way too much, but I think it depends on the age and, the timing, and if he's slowing down, the older he gets, and the heavyweight division doesn't depend on speed and stuff like that as much. So I still give the edge to Roy Nelson, and I think he's going to win.
Yeah. On the underdog side, though, I mean, a guy like that, facing him, and it is heavyweights, you know what I mean? It only takes one shot. Now, we know Roy Nelson has a freaking, concrete jaw, but for an underdog bet, I don't know. It wouldn't be the worst thing in the world to think this guy has a shot, though, right?
I mean, he has a chance, like you said about the odds and everything. It's, I mean, I guess you could put a small wager on him if you were a gambling guy, but I just think that experience-wise, Roy Nelson, like you said, his chin is granted. He's really only been stopped, I guess, maybe by Mark Hunt and Arlovsky before. It's not like he's fought some of the top guys, and I just don't see him getting finished. So I think that he either wins by knockout or he wins the decision.
Yeah. Now, further down the card, one of the other big fights that's taking place this weekend is the return of Aaron Pico in his second Bellator fight after, going through collegiate wrestling, and he's taking on a guy by the name of Justin Lin. Obviously, Aaron Pico is going to have the bulk of the attention on him. He's a minus 595 favorite against Justin Lin, who comes back at plus 445, according to the odds makers over at mybookie.ag. James, I want to ask you this. Aaron Pico is a guy who came in with a lot of hype on day one. So many people pegged him as the next big thing. And he goes out there and he gets finished. And I can't remember what it was. It was like within a minute and a half or 2 minutes. It was a crazy fast finish. Zach Freeman put on a great performance. What do you expect out of a guy like that? I mean, so much pressure going into his debut. And here he is in his second fight, and he's kind of right back to where he was. He's almost a minus 600 favorite. I mean, that's crazy.
Yeah, I think that they should have started him off a little slower. I think that Bellator has been paying him for a long time. I know he was signed with them 2 years ago. So I think maybe they're just trying to get a return on their investments. But I think that they should have started him off a little bit slower, kind of like they did A.J. McKee, and they built A.J. McKee up with the company and gave him some decent level opposition to build him up. And I do think the drop down to 145 is good for Pico, and I think that that's going to be an advantage for him because he's a little small for lightweights, and I think that it's the guy he's fighting. Obviously has way more experience than him in MMA, but I think he can get the win on this one. I think it's a good matchup for him, and he should get the win on this one.
Yeah, you obviously where you're at right now is the top 15 lightweight in the world, James. You understand. You have the experience that the other people don't when you've dealt with a loss, and obviously you haven't dealt with loss very often in your career. But you come back, and it seems like you've been able to come back stronger, better, faster, more motivated. What advice would you give for a guy like Aaron Pico, who went out there with so much hype around him, and then let's be honest, he got turned around really quickly with that loss. I mean, it's got to be a little discouraging. But as a veteran, what kind of advice would you give this kid going into his second fight?
Yeah, as long as his preparation is right and he's continuously training hard, which I'm sure he is, or he wouldn't be at the level of a wrestler at wrestling he had gotten to. As long as all that's the same, you just have to chalk it up to the guy had a better night, and it was more of what he did right than what you did wrong. That's the way I feel what happened with my loss 2 fights ago. It was more of what he did right than what I did wrong. And you know, I made some corrections, but at the end of the day, I believe in your system, and if you're training hard and doing what you need to do, the results are eventually going to come. You just got to keep your head up and keep grinding.
Yeah. So you still think Aaron Pico is a good pick for this weekend?
Yeah, yes, sir. For sure, I do.
Awesome. Before I get you out of here, James, let me ask you this: you're in Maryland training. When are we going to see the Texecutioner back in the octagon? When's that going to happen?
Man, I'm not too far off, but I don't understand why they haven't announced my fight yet. I'm waiting I have a fight. I already signed the contract, and I've been waiting for them to announce it for 3 or 4 weeks now. And I text Sean and ask him if I text Sean Shelby and ask him if my opponent was good and did he pull out or what happened. And he's like, no, we're good to go. He's like, I guess they're waiting to announce it. I don't understand why they're waiting to announce it, but he said just keep doing what you're doing. So I'm in camp getting ready, and everyone knows I'm in camp, but no one knows who I'm fighting or when.
Yeah.
I can't tell them.
Yeah. Well, I'll just ask you this. I know you can't give away any secrets, but I'll ask you this. Will we see you back before the end of the year? Is that the plan?
Oh, for sure. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. For sure.
I love it. James, thank you for taking time, man. I know you're on your way to practice, so I appreciate you taking a few minutes, man. Look forward to catching up when that fight gets announced. We'll get you back on, and we'll talk about your fight, all right?
Yes, sir. I appreciate it. Thank you.
All right, man. Talk to you soon. There you go. Bellator 183 this weekend on Spike TV. It's a great event. I mean, it's a great event. Patricky Pitbull against Benson Henderson. Roy Nelson makes his debut. Lorenz Larkin against Paul Daley. Obviously, Aaron Pico against Justin Lin. Adam Piccolotti and Goiti Yamayuchi. It's a really, really solid event. I want to say a big thank you, of course, to both Joe Lauzon and to James Vick for popping on here and breaking down some fights with us. Make sure, as I said before, make sure you check out mybookie.ag. If you enter in the code KOREPS, you get 100% reimbursement on your deposit. Check that out and check out the odds over there for the fights coming up this weekend. We will see you guys back next week with more of the Fight Society podcast as we gear up for our first kind of going into UFC 216 week coming up here in 2 weeks. So we will talk to you then. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you then.